address. Here at the Radio Wammo Breakfast, it is 12 minutes past 9.
The Radio Wammo Breakfast.
Live from the New Scientist Labs, Janine Young, newscientist.com.
Yes, talking new science with us. A couple of fascinating stories once again with Janine Young joining us live from Melbourne City. Hello to you, Janine.
Good morning.
Nice to see you once again. And the first topic, I'm totally unfamiliar with. I think most people listening are probably very unfamiliar with mephedrone.
Mephedrone is a drug. I didn't know it was called mephedrone yesterday either, but it's actually better known to you and I and most newspapers, particularly sensationalist ones, as Meow Meow. And I've got to get this right because I'm no good with chemical names. It's a synthetic analogue of the herbal amphetamine cathinone, hence why it has been known as plant food.
Right.
Now, it's not food for plants. It's legal and it is able to be sold online. This particular writer who decided to look at this and sort out the fact from the fiction was able to get it online for about £60, so this isn't an English story, for a $25 courier fee and it arrived within 2 hours. Now, it is legal, but there's been a lot of hype around what Meow Meow is actually responsible for, and you'll forgive me if I don't use mephedrone again either.
Yeah.
It's potentially been involved in someone ripping their scrotum off.
Goodness.
Another person, several people are saying to be killed. And when you actually look at some of the detailed analysis of what's going on, it's actually not quite as it might at first seem. The whole ripping the scrotum off story was originally published on a website as a joke, and it unfortunately got picked up and used in newspapers. So this story is floating around that it does your head in so badly that you'll do really weird things like ripping off your testicles. That's never going to be a good thing.
Lazy journalism.
Well, it is, and it's also very sensational journalism because some studies have been done recently that have been looking at the rate of reporting of things like amphetamine overdoses, ecstasy overdoses. All deaths associated with ecstasy are going to be reported. I think it's about 1 in 250, maybe less. It was 1 in 3 deaths associated with amphetamines is likely to be reported, but anything to do with paracetamol is likely to be 1 in 250. So the rates of reporting for drug-related deaths are a lot higher. And, of course, any new and emerging drug is going to be a sensational story. It's a brilliant one if you can cover it.
Yeah.
But in the UK, coroners have only been able to associate 2 deaths out of the 27 that have been attributed to it with Meow Meow. And there's no real known effects. There haven't been any studies done about toxicity. We really don't know that much about it at this point.
So really there aren't that many facts. There's more fiction.
I think you've absolutely nailed that one on the head. It's always very concerning when a new drug emerges, and there's no doubt that use is increasing. An online survey that was done by a relatively reputable website has found that it's the 4th most used drug in the UK. Cocaine, ecstasy, amphetamines all went ahead of it, but it's an emerging drug, and because it's legal, or at least it has been up until a couple of weeks ago where they banned it in the UK, it's really easy to get your hands on. But the problem with making a drug illegal is that you tend to drive it underground. It tends to become more dirty and dangerous and more expensive. It tends to go into the hands of organised crime. So for the public health aspects of it, you can think that maybe banning it is a good thing. But interestingly, the New Zealanders a number of years ago with, I can't remember which drug it was, but it was an emerging drug, instead of saying, no, we're banning it, took a kind of halfway attitude that turned out to be a really brilliant response, because they said, okay, well, we're making sure that you can't sell it to anyone under 18. And that's a kind of halfway sort of thing. It was kind of legal but kind of not. And they worked out in the meantime, when a whole bunch of the facts about how it was affecting people, how toxic it was, whether it should be available, then they banned it.
Are you talking about BZPs?
Yes, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Sorry, my memory failed me. I was up very late last night. Just the way it happens. My brain doesn't function after 1 o'clock.
It's a mad world.
Yes, that's because Wammo knows I went and saw Tears for Fears and Spandau Ballet last night. And they were excellent. If you get a chance, if they come into New Zealand, go see them. They were amazing. Tears for Fears more than Spandau Ballet, but, that's just my bias.
Was there any mephedrome at the concert, or Meow Meow at the concert?
There might have been, but I suspect there were far too many old people there. Probably myself included. But it was funny because one of the singers from Tears for Fears, not Kurt, the other one, his name I can't remember, was making a comment about the fact, he's delighted to see so many young kids these days. He said, they're about the age as my sons, who hate all this stuff, but I don't know why, because it's paying for their school fees.
Exactly. What a very good point.
Anyway, sorry.
We're
talking about.
That was a good point about BZPs, but the thing that puzzles me about these drugs and why people want to take these particular drugs is that they come from odd backgrounds, like either being plant food or horse tranquilizers or video head cleaning stuff. Just real chemical type stuff. That had industrial sort of purposes beforehand.
They're legal. Yeah, I think that's probably the bottom line, that starting from a legal base is going to be a lot simpler than going for something like cocaine or heroin or ecstasy or any other kind of amphetamine. The fact that you actually now have a whole new class of legal drugs coming up, and of course that's going to be ahead of any kind of legal regulation that goes behind it or understanding of what these drugs do. I suspect there's a group of people out there that if there's a drug and they know that it can have some kind of effect, or it might, they're going to try it. This mephedrone apparently has not side effects, reactions, that's the word I'm looking for, that are fairly similar to amphetamines. You get a rush to the head, you feel, euphoria, you're more talkative, sociable. The writer Nick Fleming actually took some of the drug, and he found that he felt amazing. He had to take about 100 milligrams of it, I think it was, which is a fairly standard line. He had to snort it. And he found that, he felt really good for a while. It's an incredible sense of euphoria. But then as he started to come down, or actually at peak, it's important to say that he had a massive increase in his blood pressure. His temperature went up by nearly a degree, like his core body temperature, which is a serious problem. If you're actually already running pretty hot, you can start overheating. His heart rate went up to 110 beats per minute from a base rate of 80. So it does actually have serious physiological effects, potentially for people who have underlying health problems, heart problems, blood pressure. If you have any kind of mental illness, you have, a history with drugs or alcohol, they're saying that these people should avoid. And I think that's a standard kind of health warning because, everyone should probably avoid, but it's these groups who are potentially at most risk. You can die of a heart attack from this thing. They're saying that it's possible. They don't know how many people actually have. They've only identified 2 so far. But avoidance is probably the best way to make sure that these things don't happen. But there's always going to be people that try. So it's all about regulation, trying to keep up with it.
Yes. Well, as with age comes wisdom and possibly less drug taking. But apparently, Janine, this next story says that your sense of smell is linked to aging.
This one is a bit counterintuitive. You think to yourself, well, it doesn't make any sense. Why would that happen? A bunch of research has been looking at fruit flies, and you've got to wonder what fruit flies have to do with humans. It's actually remarkable how many of their gene sequences and the like and their processes are relatively similar to ours. Same goes for worms. Cinorhabditis elegans has been used as an experimental tool for a really long time. They found in these flies that if you take away their ability to be able to sense carbon dioxide in particular, so that it's an actual smell that some of their food releases, yeast and the like, that they actually live, or females, it's important, the females live for up to 30% longer. The males are not any better off out of this, which is interesting. It's possible that the females are just more sensitive to carbon dioxide. But if you actually remove this smell, they live a lot longer, and they think that this has to do with the fact that they're sensing that food supplies are tight. There's not as much around, so survival mechanisms kick in. We know the same thing happens in humans. If you reduce calorific intake, so you make sure that you don't eat that much food, you actually live a lot longer, and you don't have susceptibility to certain types of diseases. This has been seen in humans for a really long time. They found with these flies that when they can't smell carbon dioxide, the females also deposit more fat, which is, again, a survival mechanism, and they live a hell of a lot longer. So it's possible that this mechanism is kicking in as a survival sort of thing to show that, I'm not going to be able to eat food, therefore I'm going to go into survival mode. And there you go. You've got a mechanism that helps you live a lot longer. strange but true.
Strange but true, and it's a good way to finish, because it has been a strange one today, Janine.
Doing what we can.
Janine Young is, of course, from New Scientist magazine, and those stories you'll find in New Scientist magazine coming out next week. And of course, you'll be able to see this once again as a video, if you feel like it, up on the YouTube channel for the Radio Wammo show, and you can get that via kiwifm.co.nz.